and Harris and Pretty are on the front row of the grid. The points combined from the first 2 races determine the grid for this one, so that's why they are at the front. Johnson, McConville, Hansford, Baxter, they've all been in it this weekend at one stage or another.
That's right, there's been no shortage of action this weekend. Reece McNally and Ben Cavendish on row 7. Gary Hill's there, debutant in V8 Utes this weekend, taking over the Charlie Kovacs car.
And he's had a lot of help too from Grant Johnson, a West Aussie, so Barbagallo is his home track. Down the back, Ellsgood starting alongside Craig Donis and Thirsty Camel have re-signed with that team for 2012, so that's great news for the Pint Side South Australian. Jake McNally is down the back of the grid. 29 cars left for this final race of the weekend. Harris v Pretty, Ford v Holden, Pet Food v Energy Drink.
Go the Ford, I say.
Oh, you're biased. It's terrible. Pither from the second row made a good jump, and Harris knew it. He had to cover it.
Yeah, he was straight onto it, but it looks like Nathan Pretty, he already got the lights on. He might have to turn them off now. He won't have to worry about anybody in front of him after that start. So good to see Nathan getting off the line now. Andrew Fisher, nice and cleanly away in the Jesus Falcon.
We just had a quick shot on the Newlawn in-car with Andrew Fisher. He had a problem in race 2, actually. Couldn't get third gear, so struggled later on in the race. But Nathan Pretty ain't struggling. He is leading up the top of Mountain Straight. Second is Harris. Pither's in the gap on Cedars. You've got to be careful here. It's really easy to think that you've got the move done, but you haven't at turn 2.
Yeah, exactly right. But at the same time, you don't want to be caught too far wide at turn 2 because the road actually drops off and it's very easy to get sucked into the outside wall.
Up the top, through the cutting, McConville 4th, then Cedars. That's Ryan Hansford. Side by side with Charlie O'Brien, who's actually helped tutor him in his younger years of racing. He's only really new to racing. Did a very brief run in minis, a season in Fujitsu, and is now in the Utes. But at the front, across the top of the hill, any gap that Ryle Harris had to make on Nathan Pretty, he's already made it.
You're not wrong, and Nathan is certainly trying, dropping the wheel almost in the dirt through McPhillamy. One place you don't want to drop a wheel off is through there now. These two down through the dipper. They're both pushing very hard. Pither trying to latch onto the back of them.
And what's often overlooked, James, is that these cars weigh a couple of 100 kilos more than a V8 supercar, around 400 to 500 kilos more of car to transfer through the run off the top of the mountain.
Oh, you're absolutely right. So they're big, heavy cars, got a lot less tyre than a V8 supercar underneath them. Brakes are smaller as well. So, you know, these guys are really battling, doing everything they can just to keep them on the track. Harris now right in the slipstream, pulls out of the Monster Energy Commodore, and he's going to have the line into the chase. You can't go too wide there, as we saw between Jack Ellsgood and Charlie O'Brien in the previous race. So,
well, you can, but it doesn't work out at the other end. That's
exactly right. So, speaking of Charlie O'Brien, there he comes through the chase now.
Zakanovich
and that's the second time we've seen him have trouble in the chase this weekend. So, still probably just adapting back to the V8 Ute after a couple of years in the Fujitsu V8 supercars.
Harris is the leader. That car, no doubt, is the fastest one here this weekend. The Big Gun Racing team have bookended the field. They run the cars of Peter Burnett and Brad Patton that were damaged earlier on in the weekend, but they also run this one with the young Queenslander behind the wheel, who has just crafted himself into a bit of a championship contender. He used to be the wild man of Ute racing, but he's just calming it down.
He certainly was. I remember, 4 or 5 years ago when I raced against him, his nickname was the Kid. So he was certainly wild and pretty aggressive to race against, but he's certainly showing or flying the flag for that team this weekend. He's done a fantastic job, and apart from a couple of indiscretions in the first race, hasn't put a foot wrong.
Andrew Fisher here, we ride on board Newlawn in-car with the Jesus Falcon, trailing Kim Jane, and he was another Ute driver to go to the Denny Ute Muster before coming to this round. Bit of a tradition for the Ute boys these days. Auto 1 replay, this cannot be good. 3 wide, Andy Kiss, Ben Dunn and Marcus Zukanovic.
And Jack Ellsgood there, trying to fight his way through, of course, starting from the back after that trouble that he had in the second race.
Now, Craig Donis, remember I said, penalised in race 1, rear of grid race 2. He went from 29th to 14th. It was a stunning job. NZ in-car looking forward at Alan Letcher, who you might not recognise Alan, because the last time he was here, he rolled 7 times through the chase. It's on its wheels today.
No, exactly right. No, I caught up with Alan earlier in the weekend, and he said his focus this weekend was just to keep the car on all 4 wheels and unscathed. So he's managed to do that so far this weekend.
Bit of pressure here for Fisher. He was fourth at Bathurst last year, narrowly missed a podium finish. And Charlie O'Brien, who's had more starts in the Bathurst 1000 than you and I have had years overall.
Exactly right. It's good to see Andrew Fisher having a good competitive run this weekend, a good clean run. He's had such a terrible year in terms of just a lot of bad luck happening, a few mechanical dramas, so this weekend he's kept his nose clean. Pither now having a look up the inside of Pretty.
Oh, McConville gone. The Bundy Commodore locks it up.
And I can't just help but think, Aaron, that Pither wasn't 100% committed to that move, probably because he's got the championship in the back of his mind.
And remember too, in the Utes series, each position is worth 1 championship point. There's more on the line. The run to the finish at Bathurst when we come back. Cameron McConville is heading to the pits. The Bundaberg Commodore has got a drama, and I wouldn't mind betting it's to do with that flat spotted tyre earlier on.
Yeah, fair chance of that, Aaron. He might have picked up a puncture or anything. We saw him, Jack Asquith up the inside. Nice and aggressive move on Warren Millett. Plenty of damage on the front of that Cooper's Clear Falcon too. So Jack's been obviously pretty aggressive as he carves his way through the field in this final race for the weekend.
Now, he started position 21. It's been a really dirty weekend. He's up to position 14, so the fight back job hasn't been too bad. And up in front is Ben Cabbage, who is his teammate. Auto 1 replay here, right front, off the deck. Anyone who says the chase is not flat, as in on the surface, is getting themselves.
That's one way to reduce tyre wear, Aaron, just hang it in the air.
Or you can do what Peter Burnett's done and have it completely out of whack. I said our camera was mounted evenly. This is the proof.
You're not wrong. So that's obviously a result of the contact that Peter had in the first race, which wasn't his fault. He was an innocent bystander in all that. So good to see that the teams have obviously been able to repair the car, not back to 100% health, but enough to get him back out and finish the weekend.
I'd call it about 72.5%, but I tell you what, they've done a great job, the boys at Big Gun Racing, to get this car just on the road. They had an ECU issue in qualifying, and Peter started rear of the grid. But back towards the front, and Pither and Cedars are getting stuck into it. It's the business time of the year, business time of the race, and someone's locked up in front. I think they made it around here. Nathan Pretty did make it, but Cedars has put a move around the outside.
Around the outside there, very impressive move. Now Pither has to cover Johnson into the final corner as well. So of course we keep going on about it, but these guys are in a championship battle. Cameron McConville there in pit lane. Obviously his dramas have been addressed, and looks like he's going to get back out on the circuit, obviously a few laps down now, so a disappointing way for him to end the weekend.
And judging by some of the bits that were lying around in the pits, a tyre stop for the Bundaberg Commodore. This is Nathan Pretty, Cedars, Pither, Johnson, Jane, Charlie O'Brien as they climb back up the mountain. It's a busy part of the second half of the year. You've got the Gold Coast after this round, Sandown, and then Sydney Olympic Park. So we've had a big gap from the last round at Townsville, and then all of a sudden we've got half of the season compacted into 2 months.
Yeah, it sure is, and even more reason why you have to keep your nose clean, stay out of trouble, keep collecting those points, which Ryle Harris has done the best job of that this weekend so far. He's absolutely flying too, Aaron. Set the fastest lap of the race, only 1/10 of a second off the race lap record, so he'll be pushing hard, I'm sure, to see if he can knock that off.
Here's Craig Donis going by McConville, who has rejoined after that stop. Hills, Canovic, Gary Carson in the new FG, Alan Letchin, Andy Kish, George Elliott, Jason Gomersall, Peter Burnett, Jake McNally there, and then Greg Willis. And McNally and his brother Reese, those cars actually now being run with the assistance of Ben Cabbage's team and Terry Bull and the boys. So they also look after Jack Elsgood's squad. So a little bit of swapping and changing, even though the colours are the same on the cars, the preparation a little bit different.
On board with Kim Jane now through one of the best sections of track anywhere in the world, looking back at Charlie O'Brien, down through Skyline, into the dipper. Charlie carrying plenty of pace down the hill. But Kim Jane, he's had a solid weekend. Probably not as quick as he would have liked to have been, but he stayed out of trouble and still netting some good championship points.
Well, he comes in this weekend, James, 6th on the championship point score. He's 92 down on Chris Pither, which you might think that sounds like a lot, and in a way it can be if everyone continues to have good reliability and doesn't get involved in dramas. But remember too that they do give points for qualifying in the Ute Series, so if you can string together a good qualifying, 3 good races, you're back in the game.
That's right, and look, Pither's back on the tail of Cedars now. So these two have really not been separated all race. They've been going at it hammer and tongs.
Oh.
We also saw Charlie O'Brien having a bit of a flash of the lights at Kim Jane down the straight. So now Grant Johnson's got to run on Chris Pither, but he's on the wrong side heading into the last corner.
And Cedars actually held them up in the middle of the chase. He just didn't have the paces. Pither just tries to squeeze up the inside of Johnson, and these two getting stuck into it has actually let Cedars get off the hook.
Oh, Cedars will be loving this. So people think, oh, great, I can relax for a bit, get a bit of a gap. But isn't it great, Aaron, to see all the championship guys, bit of contact there, but all the championship guys, they're all going at it together, with the exception of Royal Harris, who's cleared out on everybody. But it's good to see that a championship is being settled with the guys in the battle, not, somebody being taken out innocently or something like that.
Not long to go at Mount Panorama. Royal Harris leads the way. We'll go to the end when we come back. It's the run home at Mount Panorama, and Chris Pither and Grant Johnson are getting stuck into it. These two have come to grief earlier on in the year. Johnson is the reigning champ. Pither is the New Zealand champ and leads this series. They are the two prime performers in the category, and they're not afraid to use the panels.
Exactly right. I don't think you can't be afraid not to use the panels in V8 Utes, otherwise you're not going to go too far. But Johnson, he's trying extremely hard, just drops the right side wheels onto the grass there over the back of the curb. Onto the final lap now, so as long as Chris doesn't make any mistakes on this last lap, he should be able to hold on for this position, I think.
Kim Jane in the background, Charlie O'Brien. Johnson's closing in here. He reckons the parity is not right this weekend. He reckons the Commodores are dumping a second and a half up and down the mountain compared to the best Fords.
Yeah, but I seem to remember at Townsville the last round, Aaron, that the Holdens were very dominating. So, I think it's just one of those things. It's very difficult for the category to get the parity right between the two cars every round. And I think it sort of evens itself out over the year, to be honest.
Change of gearbox too for the number one car since race 2. They had some issues in that one, so a new box is on board. And the West Aussie is zeroing in. Remember, he's a two-time champ. He won the series in 07, and he won it last year on the streets of Sydney Olympic Park. And judging by the way this year's gone, it will go down to the wire again at Sydney this year.
Oh, you're not wrong. The way these four guys at the top of the championship battle have been racing all year, I can't see anybody getting a big lead and having the title wrapped up any sooner before Homebush. But, just back on the parity, I don't see too much wrong with it. There's 3 Fords and 2 Holdens in the top 5, so it's not like the Fords are completely dominating. Royal Harris has definitely cleared out on the field in this race. He's done a fantastic job all weekend and clearly has been the fastest car, so he deserves to be at the front of the field.
Dropping off the top of the mountain for the final time. This is, remember, round 5 in an 8-round series for the Ute boys, and Pither and Johnson. I don't think this is done with. He gives him a bit of a rough into the elbow, and really his last chance is at the chase.
We've seen plenty of action down at the chase this weekend with the V8 Utes, so this certainly isn't over for sure, but one thing I can probably guarantee, that Chris Pither will cover his line into the chase.
And this is for 4th place. Royal Harris is moonlighting out in front. He's on his way home to take not just the race, but his first ever round win in the Ute Series. Johnson is looking like he's going to throw everything at this, but he's just not close enough, or is he? Wham! Send that off the road. He whacks the Kiwi through the grass.
Now, that was a bit cheeky by Grant. He really shouldn't have done that, but how about it for Royal Harris? Takes the checkered flag and the round win. Fantastic result for him and VIP Pet Foods.
It's his first ever round win. He's won races in this series before, but he stitched the weekend together really well. They run to the line. Kim Jane ends up with a free spot or two. O'Brien's next, then Pither, then Johnson. I wouldn't mind betting that might be looked into after this one.
Oh, you're definitely right, Aaron. Pither won't be very happy about that last lap, that's for sure.
Gary Baxter next across the line. Ryan Hansford and Reece McNally with him. And let's have a look again now. It looked like here on the exit of the chase, Johnson lifts out. Have a look here. Pither pops back out. He lets him in front. Problem is, though, that Jane and O'Brien got them both.
Yeah, that's right. Grant just got into the chase a little bit too hot, had nowhere to go but into the back of Chris, and the rest is history.
We talked about parity too, and there's 5 Fords and 5 Holdens in the top 10, and the top one of them, Royal Harris, takes his first ever round win. Cedars second from Pretty. Pither and Johnson read out the 5, and Ryan Hansford in 10th.
role. You've been rewarded with some excellent racing out there with the round win, a great result.
It feels amazing to get my first round win here. Is great. I think the only thing that's going to top it is doing it in front of all my family and friends in a couple of weeks on the Gold Coast. But when you come to Bathurst in a good car, you just get that extra confidence. And up the top of the mountain, I don't think anyone was as quick as me this weekend. I was just so confident through there, and scared the bejesus out of myself a few times, but a good scare. And you finish the lap off, and you're just like, wow. And that's why everyone loves this track.
And why not? He's 17 points behind.